Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Before I get into today's guest, I wanted to just kind of talk about like some of the things that some of my friends are going through and just maybe relate to this if you're a gay man or a single straight man or a single woman or I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of loneliness happening in the world today and people are looking for their partner. At least my friends are all at the age now where they want to be settled down. Not necessarily they want to be in a monogamous relationship, but they want to be settled down and they want to be with someone that they could possibly live with and have a future with and move in together with. And I have several friends that are like that, where they're looking for love. And I don't know what it is about the gay LGBTQ plus culture, where it's probably gay men culture. And I think the apps have just like made it more difficult because everyone is always, I'm not on the apps obviously because I'm in a long-term relationship that's monogamous, so I'm not on the apps. But as I've said many times in previous episodes, all of my friends are, and sometimes it consumes their life, and that's what their whole entire existence ends up being sometimes because they're constantly on there looking for the next best thing. Or they're just looking for a hookup, or they're looking for a date that doesn't work out and ends up being a hookup, or there's all these different scenarios. And, just some of even the newer friends that I've met here in Boston are also kind of just struggling with the over-saturated amount of apps that are out there. And there's like a whole psychological study, I think, that needs to happen because I think these apps are having the opposite effect of what they should, because you can meet people on the apps. So I almost feel like this should be like its own separate episode, but I'm going to do a quick version of this and then maybe do an episode about this later. But, you have these apps like Grindr where it's a hookup app, or you have the Sniffies app, and that Sniffies app is like all about sex or different group sex activities and stuff. I've taken my friends' phones and looked at these apps, and I really think it is just mind-boggling about what people are doing on these apps. And it makes me feel like a prude because, I don't know, when you see, like, you go on these apps, the Sniffies app, for example, and there's like a 25-person sex party happening 2 blocks from where you're at, you're like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. It's just like, that just like didn't happen whenever I was single, or maybe it was happening and I just wasn't part of that culture. So, but how would you have found it then? I guess you would have maybe went to a website or something. I don't know. I guess that's why people were going to like the Rambles in Central Park, which is like a hookup area for those people that don't know it. And then in Miami, there was a park that people would go and hook up at called Flamingo Park that was in South Beach. And so maybe that's what people were doing before you had these apps and stuff. But then you have like these dating apps like Tinder and Hinge. I don't know if Bumble, I guess. Match.com. I don't know if anybody's using that anymore. Anyway, there's like 1,000 apps out there for you if you want to date somebody. And what I have been told by my friends is that a lot of these things are now like bots and they're not even real people because they're getting you to try to go on to their OnlyFans or they're trying to get money from you, which I don't understand like how you would, I don't know, I guess people are like, hey, like you start talking to somebody and they're not really a real person. And like my friend Bridget, who is straight and it was on apps, she's like, as soon as they say, let's go to WhatsApp and they start talking to you there, then that means that they're fake because they're trying to lure you into like try to get some money out of you or something. So it's like a whole thing, but it just feels like the world is like a lonelier place with all these apps where I feel like it's having the opposite effect of what it really should be doing is helping people connect. So I don't know. Like I've read these articles where like gay and lesbian bars and LGBTQ plus bars are closing down because people aren't going out as much because they are so tuned in to these apps, and that's just what they're doing. They can meet people through these apps and they don't have to go out to a place. I mean, I don't know. It seems like my friends are like on there that are single, and it's like a constant, I don't know, you're on a constant hunt to find somebody, whether it's for love or sex or friendship or whatever. And it feels like I guess that's why these apps make so much money, because they're addicting. You're addicted to them, and I'm addicted to TikTok. And so I could see where if I was looking for love or I was looking for, I don't know, the right sexual partner or something, I could see where it could be addicting. I don't know. I'm just so thankful that I am not single in today's world, because I think meeting somebody today is just so hard, because you have to go through these apps and you're judged. You have to have you could have long conversations. I mean, my friends say that sometimes they have conversations for weeks and then the person just ghosts them for no reason before they even meet them. So you've wasted all this time getting to know somebody, and then, or you meet them once or twice, 3 times, and then all of a sudden they disappear. Or you make plans on, like, my one friend that I talked to that's really into these apps, he's like, he meets these guys, they talk, so literally for like 3 or 4 weeks, make plans, they get canceled, they try to make another plan that gets canceled, and then the person just like stops responding. And it's just like, I don't get it. So maybe it's just like, I'm not in that mind frame. I don't know, if I was ever single again, I think I just would, I don't know, I'd have to hire a matchmaker, I think. Because I just don't think I could be on the apps. I think I would just be too neurotic about it, just wanting to find the right person, and I'd be pissed off. I think it would make my self-esteem horrible too, because I'm like, these people, I've spent 2 or 3 weeks talking to somebody and then they just ghost me, or I meet them once or twice and they just like stop and you don't know why. Did you like say something wrong? I don't know. I think I should just do a whole show on this and like interview people that have gone through this. Actually, that's what I think I'm going to do. That's a new topic. I'm going to interview people that have gone through these crazy experiences on these apps, and like nothing ever comes out of it. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. My guest today is part of my whole local series that I was doing of interviewing people in my local community of Boston. And Marcus is a great guy. You'll hear his whole story about who he is and what he does in Boston. And I hope you enjoy it, because I really love talking with him. And I haven't actually met him in person. We both live in Boston, because I do all my interviews remote. But listen to Marcus's interview. Leave a comment and tell me what you think about it. And thanks so much for listening and tuning in. And I'll be back tomorrow with another interview for you. So thanks for listening. Hi, thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I have another local Boston person that we're speaking to. So welcome to the show, Marcus.
Hi, thank you so much, Zach.
So I am doing a series, Marcus, going in and kind of talking to people that live in Boston area. Do you know who reporter Matt is?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I interviewed him and he was amazing. Loved him. There's a guy named Benjamin Smith who's a real estate guy who goes around in full makeup, and loved him too.
Yeah.
There's a couple other people that I've interviewed that haven't quite come out yet, but they're soon. So I'm doing like this local series, and there's like 2 or 3 other people that's reached out to me and said, "Hey, I would love to be in your podcast," and they seem interesting. So here we are doing local podcast. So I have a question for you before we get started. And it's controversial a little bit, but I ask all of my Boston podcast LGBTQ plus guests this question. First of all, how long have you lived in Boston?
Just a little over 16 years.
Okay. So you're like a real Bostonian then, I would say.
Yeah, through and through at this point.
Okay, so my question is, why are the gays in Boston not friendly?
Oh, geez. I don't know. And sometimes I think about that, and then I'm like, oh my God, am I one of the unfriendly gays? Um, I don't know. I think so I'm
But you
originally
agree that
from,
they're unfriendly, right?
yeah, I just, that seems to kind of permeate. It's like one on
Okay.
one, I think it's good, but I think
Yeah.
culturally, I definitely agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, or 2 days ago, I had a conversation with someone in Boston, and he's like, "I don't want to say it because I don't want to be outcast, but yeah, they're not friendly or they're not nice." So,
At this point, I've been here long enough. I'm just gonna say it like it is and
yeah,
love it or hate it.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I lived here for 6 years, went away for a year and a half to Dallas, which was not great, and then I've been back for 3. So, and I don't know, like I lived in New York for like 17 years, and gays in New York are so much more friendly and nicer than the gays in Boston. So I don't know. Guess it is what it is. If I can
Yeah.
figure it out. But it's funny when I posted this interview that me and Benjamin Smith did. Um, we said the gays are so mean, and we got, I mean, so many, like 1,000 comments or something from people
Wow.
saying they are mean. They are mean. Of course, you had the trolls that said that maybe we're mean and that's why people don't talk to us. But I'm like, that's not it. 'Cause all these other thousands of gays have said the same thing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. So
I will say it feels more like it's the place, not necessarily the people, because you transplant a bunch of gays in P
yeah,
Town for the summer,
yeah,
and I feel like I get to know people way more there and
I
outside of our
agree.
daily lives. So
I
take that for
agree.
what it's worth.
So Marcus has a store called Flourish and Foundry, and it's in Boston. He also has a website. So I will put the website in the description of this video or podcast, but just so you know, it's flourishandfoundryshop.com. I've been checking it out today. Lots of amazing stuff. I need to come to the local store and see it, but I need to wait till I get my bonus later this month before I do that because I feel like it's easy to spend money in this store because there's so much awesome, amazing stuff.
Thank you. I love it. I appreciate that.
So tell me how you got started with the store, and has it been around for the 16 years you've lived here?
No, my journey is, as winding as it could be, I think. Um, but to sort of skip ahead a little bit to like really what inspired Flourish and Foundry, a lot of it comes from really my background as an interior designer. And kind of a friend who I started this with, who's my original business partner. I think what we recognized is like as interior designers, you get this behind the scenes look at how things are done,
Yeah,
whether that's like the process or literally how fabric is woven and products are made and installed. And it feels like certain things in our culture have like pulled the curtains behind, but almost oversimplified kind of the process of design and where people don't really appreciate it anymore. And so,
yeah,
and also just with the way our economy is, you sort of have these big companies that are kind of eating everything up and
mhm,
really catering more toward shareholders and not toward you actually purchasing nice quality, like
yeah,
fairly priced things. There's either like junk you might find in a big box store that
yeah,
can remain unnamed or like super, super luxury. And so it was sort of like navigating all of that and really creating a place that people can trust and also just have access to really great quality things. But in that, supporting other small businesses and individual makers
mhm,
that help create really awesome things for your home.
yeah. I mean, I bought I don't even know how many couches over the last 25 years because we've moved 18 times
Oh,
together,
geez.
me and my husband. So I feel like every time we moved, either we would move to a place that was smaller and the couch was too big, or we'd move to a bigger place and the couch felt too small. One time we moved and the couch would not fit through the front door.
Oh, yeah. That's a Boston story or a New York story right there.
It was in New York. No, it wouldn't fit in the elevator. I'm sorry. That's what it
Oh,
was. It wouldn't fit in
gosh.
the elevator. So we bought this couch from Restoration Hardware, picked out the custom whatever color that we wanted. So it took, 1,000 weeks to get. And then we had it for 2 months and moved and like, oh yeah. And we had to sell it for like $700 on Craigslist or something. It was so painful.
Yeah. Yes, I've definitely heard those stories.
I want to go back to your store and about the whole thing, but I want to also start though with just a little bit of background about who you are, because
Sure, yeah.
you grew up in Utah, and kind of talk to me about that journey about growing up gay in Utah as a Mormon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so primarily, I mean, definitely had like a Western boy, grew up primarily in Utah, also California, Oregon. Really, my
Okay.
whole family's from out there. And, it's interesting. I sort of look at my life now when you're in your like late 30s, early 40s, you start to like actually see things for how
Yeah.
they are. And it's interesting looking at the different aspects of growing up, specifically Mormon, specifically like gay, but not even knowing what that
Yeah.
meant in the 90s,
Yeah.
and how it influences the things I struggle with, but also like the greatest parts of who I am. So Mormons are like generally kind of taught to be very kind and helpful.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, and that part of that is also my parents, but I think that influences like how I interact with people. I love like walking down the streets of Boston and just like catching eye contact with people and holding it for a minute, because it doesn't make me uncomfortable, because you walk anywhere in Utah and you just immediately, people are your friends even if you don't
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also like Mormon life is sort of when you're in it, it feels very normal. It feels very kind of everyday, especially in Utah, where you're surrounded by 90% of people that are almost exactly like you.
Yes.
But there's like so many rules and so many, kind of elements of the structure of the religion that you must follow in order to fit in, which is very comforting in some ways, because you sort of have like the checklist for everything, how to live. But once you realize that life isn't that easy, once you become an adult, that causes a lot of internal conflict. But I think that, and then of course being gay on top of that is just like contradictory to really the tenets of the religion and of
Did
the
your
culture.
parents accept it?
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I think that that's something that I've always been like blessed with. I've definitely have friends who grew up Mormon whose parents like either never understood it and still are confused 20 years later, or kicked them out, kind of each extreme. My parents are very, really at the end of the day, wonderful people. And I think actually lived their religion, where they saw me for who I was and not kind of maybe what they hoped I was, or whatever other Mormon or religious parents assume. So that was definitely that wasn't a direct struggle for me, but there's still all those, whether it was strictly written down in the Book of Mormon or like in a teaching you heard on Sunday, or just those little nuanced things about the Mormon lifestyle that still have create this internal conflict.
Yeah.
But I even think like that, I think a lot of that actually has influenced my abilities and passion as a designer, because for me, it's all about people. Design, like, you can make the most beautiful space, but if people aren't comfortable, if people aren't able to be who they are, or aren't able to connect properly, or whatever the kind of is the space is used for, it's kind of, there's no purpose for it.
Yeah.
And so kind of that kind of need or desire to help facilitate that, to and also that's part of just like growing up in a contradictory way, is some little bit of a need for control, or being able to sort of see a better future or see a vision out of that. That definitely I've recognized as, continues to influence me today. And now that, you work through that stuff in therapy and in life, and I think now I'm able to take the best little parts of it and use it in my daily life.
How did you end up coming from the West to Boston? Like, how did you end up here?
Sure. Yeah. So I had, my parents would definitely, for growing up in Utah, they tried to culture us, and help us travel and those sorts of things. But what originally brought me out to the East Coast was being called on a Mormon mission. The 2-year life where you're plucked from wherever you grew up and put in a different place. So I was called to New York City.
Oh, wow. That's a great place to go.
Yeah, it was a great place to go. I hadn't visited before, but I was also called to speak Cantonese, which is like dialect of Chinese from Hong Kong, where, a lot of the original, people from China, what they spoke that, in Chinatown in New York. So there was that 2-year experience, which was incredibly hard because learning Chinese isn't easy. And also a 19-year-old kid in New York City coming from Utah. It's like completely opposite lifestyle.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. I mean, were you completely overwhelmed whenever you got off the plane? Like,
I
and
think
stepped.
there was definitely a little bit of delusion where I was like, a little bit of kind of starstruck or like
Yeah.
kind of wide-eyed. But I remember like being picked up from the airport and driven to the apartment that I was to stay at, me and another missionary. It was like a rainy night in December, and in New York, they sort of pile up the trash on the street
Yeah.
when it's trash night,
Mhm.
and just being absolutely horrified that like it was this trash-filled place.
Yeah.
And I think that was like an initial rude awakening. But it would always ebb and flow between like, I'm really committed to this work and I'm excited to help people, but also like, wow, that you have like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. And in New York, you're not always in the comfort of other people's homes talking with them. You're literally on the street, no matter the weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely very overwhelming. But also like I got to know people from 100 countries, from every lifestyle, every color, in all the different areas I served, which very much opened my eyes to like the world outside of Utah and outside of my life I'd been living. And then, from that experience, after I went home to Utah, did a 2-year degree in interior design once I realized that's even what I wanted to do. But realized I needed to, finish my degree and also, again, leave Utah and, finish my education and live my life. So the head of the program, Mojde, just this incredible woman in Utah, very well connected, suggested I look at schools in New York and also in Boston, based on her contacts and sort of her experience. So I looked at schools in New York and then ended up, long story short, finding the Boston Architectural College here. And their curriculum of like working full-time, getting credit as well as doing your academics at the same time just really fit where I was in my career development, but also just like culturally, Boston just like felt like a really, like it wasn't too big of a place, but also it just felt like the right place to be. And I think it's, certainly panned out to be that.
And do you think you're in Boston forever now?
I think so. I mean, anytime I've maybe thought about leaving, like either something has kind of extra gone right here or or something has fallen through or friends have moved or what, there's always been something that's kept me here. Now I've started a small business here and, short of our economy and country collapsing because of our current situation, I think I'm committed to it. But also I think anywhere where you like really commit to growing roots, especially after 16 years, I think I want to respect that and also know that like what I've put in, I continue to get back from my network and my people.
Are you single?
I'm single. Yeah.
Oh my God, this is going to be a perfect podcast. I want to be a matchmaker so badly.
I appreciate that.
And if you're open, I know someone. I already have something in my head for you.
I love it.
Okay, this will be a post podcast discussion then.
Cool. I love it. Let's do it.
So talk to me a little bit just about how design, like you talked about the big box stores, which is, where, I mean, a lot of them are disappearing, right? I mean, they're
sure. Yeah.
all being, I don't know, consolidated or just there's not enough, the economy's collapsing them. And I think just they change. I mean, it's the design. I guess design is just constantly changing. So talk to me about just how you're kind of keeping up with that and where are we at today with design and why is it so important to have like, a store like yours, like a local store that's also e-commerce and online, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I think, part of what drives me as a designer and also like the interactions with customers that I have is that life is a tactile experience. It's not, sort of like take the experience of looking at a sofa or anything online, like that doesn't translate to actually sitting in and enjoying and also understanding if that sofa fits in your elevator or in your apartment or home.
It's so funny you say that
Yeah.
because me and my husband, when we were buying our first couple of couches, I would find something on Restoration Hardware or Crate and Barrel or wherever. I'm going to buy this couch. He goes, no, we got to go to the store and sit in it. And I'm like, no, we don't. It looks soft. And he was right every time. We would get it and I would hate it. And that was the reason why we
Yeah.
bought it, because it was either hard or the cushions, we didn't get the wide cushions when we needed them. I don't know. It was just like, so I agree.
Yeah.
You need to go to a store almost a lot of times and sit in it and like experience it. So anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. It's just a
No,
funny story because
no.
like
I mean,
you were the
exactly.
same. You were exactly saying what my husband has said to me for
Yeah.
years.
That was kind of my rule when I practiced interior design. It's for a big commercial firm, and like the scale of those projects, like if the sit or the durability of one chair fails,
Yeah.
it could be big consequences on a project. And so I'm like, have to sit in it before I sell it to my client for their project. But also, it wasn't really that long ago, like only 50 or 60 years ago, when interior design was certainly at the end of it's always been sort of for the wealthy, but when it started to become a little bit more egalitarian, in like the 1930s and 1950s, 60s, when you were the end user, the consumer was a lot closer to the designer.
Mhm.
And it's only sort of expanded, and that gap has widened as it's been more commercialized, as like private equity has invested in it. And it's really the purpose of, at least products, they're designed to be sold now, really, and not always to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do is, I mean, I don't sell everything, and maybe eventually I will, but what I do sell, things are made by individual makers, whether they're like one person that makes a candle or like a collective that makes a lot of different things, bedding or whatever. And something I've found is when someone makes something, and it doesn't have to be like hand whittling. It can have mechanism. It can be like slightly larger scale. But
Yeah.
when the people that are making the product, or when it's something that they might use, like they're making a candle that they would love to they burn in their own home, they're going to make it the best way they can. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be smell great. It's going to be something that they would also gift or own themselves.
Yeah.
And so part of what I'm trying to do is kind of shorten that connection between the maker and the consumer in order to create a more transparent experience. Also, if you're buying bedding or something that's more of an investment, if you're spending like $300 on a duvet cover, like, to some people that's a lot of money, to others maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to see the fabric, touch and feel.
Yeah.
You can look at an image or read a description online that's been marketed and been made to look perfect, but until you actually touch it, or in my case, you come in and you talk with me, I can share pros and cons depending on different fabrics or whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you anything to walk into the store. Maybe just a little bit of your time, or like pop in for a weekend if you don't live in the city. But you're going to end up appreciating that purchase a lot more.
You're so right. You know what my thing is with sheets and towels. There's a certain type of towel that I love, and I got to figure out what the material is, and because I always end up buying the wrong material. I buy this like material sometimes with this. I like the big bath sheets.
Sure, yeah, of course.
But there's this one material that I have bought over and over, and I don't know why I continue to punish myself like this, but it doesn't really absorb the water so well.
Yeah.
And then there's this other sheets that I got from, I don't know where I got it from, and they're like the best, and there's no tag on them anymore because I've had them for so long, and I don't know where they're from, and I don't know what they're made out of or anything. So maybe I need to just come in your store and I can explain this all to you. You can help me find the towels that I've been looking for.
Well, and I've also done research. So like, I had customers asking about bath towels, for example, for a long time.
Yeah.
Or since we opened initially. And I'm like, I'm not going to bring something in that I haven't tested, because it does more than just like feel soft or, hang on look pretty in your bathroom. Like, it needs to absorb. And so I needed to try them out first. And that requires a little extra time. That also requires a little bit of kind of knowledge of the process of making. But with that, the towels I have in the shop now are super popular, and there are people like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And being able to like make that connection with a customer, like I've done the work for you and I can tell you about it, like helps sell the product. But it also, what I hope and what I've gotten feedback from customers is that helps them like feel like they've spent money wisely. And that's harder and harder to know how to do nowadays, I feel like.
Yeah, God, I've bought so much crap. I feel like the internet is horrible.
We all have.
I mean, I've just like, but you know, we have this extra bedroom in our house, and it's like when we moved into this house 2.5 years ago, it kind of became the room where clothes go that never are seen again. Like we have like these racks of clothes in there, and our winter coats are in there. And then there's a queen size bed in there also. And I would like do sheets and I would throw them in there because I didn't feel like folding them at the time. And then like 6 weeks ago, we decided we were going to clean up this bedroom, and like fold all the sheets and put them away in these boxes that we have that are nice and supposed to be organized, and we got rid of 8 bags of clothes, big garbage bags of clothes.
Oh my gosh.
And shoes and shit. So just all this crap that we didn't need. And then I realized I had 9 sets of sheets. I'm like, who needs 9 sets of sheets? No one. But I ended up getting rid of the ones that I like hate, and now I need new sheets. So I'm definitely going to come and see you. Is the point of my stories.
Yeah, well, I think I hear that from a lot of people, and I think, and I could share from my own experience, I think we maybe have a little bit of a vision of what we want. Like, for example, this isn't home goods, but like I wanted like a really great leather jacket for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, that's like really expensive. And so then I would buy other jackets that were styled maybe like I liked them, but they weren't quite that thing. And by the time you add up the cost of those like
you should have just got
7
the one you
other
wanted.
jackets, I should have I could have bought 2 leather jackets.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I think that people do that with other things too, because we're all kind of trained to, in this culture of scarcity, you know, there's only so many options that are good, or you know, or we sort of are, you know, however things are marketed to us. And I think if we just pump the brakes a little bit and slow down and just, you know, find a place you can trust where to shop, or, you know, do your own research if you want to spend the time, then you'll end up, you know, buying the right things a lot earlier.
And not investing in 1,000 pieces of crap. So
yeah, exactly.
So how are you kind of going out and finding all this great stuff you have on your website? And, you know, like you have this, you know, you were talking about candles, and I was kind of looking at your bath and laundry section and the living room. I mean, are you kind of going out and finding these things and curating them yourself?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of, it's kind of a lot of different things. Definitely there's a kind of an organic connection with makers as they find me.
Yeah.
Some of the brands, you know, I've known for years, like I have a brand it's called Pretty Cool, and they make different products out of like concrete terrazzo, you know, like a wine bottle coaster that's popular. Like I just brought in some incense holders from them, soap dishes that are popular. I found them at like a little pop-up market just 100 years ago, you know, probably traveling, but they're from Houston. Another, you know, I sell these great reed diffusers. And I think I originally found her at one of the shops in P-Town on Commercial Street, you know, years ago. And so it's sort of remembering what I've connected with. But also, you know, I've done some pop-up things, you know, in different spots when we were starting out. And I've met people through that, you know, naturally, where you kind of overhear the person next to you. You're like, wow, we share values. They make their own things.
Yeah.
So Kiyo Home, for example, I sell her candles and room sprays, and we were connected through a mutual friend. And she's up in New Hampshire and has this kind of like, you know, corporate life to make her story, which I really connect with because that's kind of how I am. But also just like, was able to experience her products in real life, and I'm like, wow, these scents are beautiful, they're amazing. So it's I love
a good reed diffuser in my bathroom, because I feel like the bathroom is like, I don't know, they're just where I get ready and I spend so much time in there and stuff. So, and I always get these. So I tell my husband this, and he loves TJ Maxx, and he goes to TJ Maxx and gets me these reed diffusers. I'm like, it has no smell, like it's old, like the scent is gone. Like, stop. It's like we were just talking about going off and buying 7 leather jackets when you could have just bought two great ones. And I'm like,
Yeah.
stop buying these bad reed diffusers and let's just like spend money on something that's going to actually have a smell, because this is probably 8 years old, this reed diffuser, and the fragrance is gone. So
Yeah. Well, and I know, I mean, again, not to get into like the economics of everything, but a lot of times those big stores like that, they source things because it's left over from Nordstrom or, you know, maybe a higher end brand or whatever. It's noble to want to resell those things, but they're just, again, gathered and sold to sell, not because they actually are quality or solve a problem. And so I'm literally led by my values of like bringing in things that have a lower impact on the environment, you know, meaning they're more thoughtful. They're, you know, not going to like make you feel guilty for like, I'm not sustainable. Like they really just inherently have those qualities. People are always come first. So like if it's something is made overseas, it's fair trade. There's transparency. You know, everyone in the process is treated fairly and has a fair wage. And then the you know, the final value, which is maybe a little all-encompassing, but it's really just providing actual quality and value. So if you're going to buy a reed diffuser, like it should be made with materials and that will last, because they really should last, you know, a year in your bathroom. But also
mine lasts 3 weeks usually.
And then you're buying 3 more, and then it's
exactly.
And that's inherently not sustainable, nor is it like it also like it kind of wastes your time, right? So
exactly,
there's really the values that help me kind of filter whether, you know, so there's a few marketplaces that I'm able to connect with people, but I always want to connect with the makers or the small businesses that I work with first before I sell, so that I can just make sure that there's aligned values, and that the way they are promoting themselves and marketing themselves is consistent and will translate to my customer as well.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. And what's happening whenever you have a couple come in, or even an individual person, and they come in and they're telling you kind of like what they want? You are able to kind of translate that in your head, and you're showing them stuff. But to me, I feel like everybody thinks they're a designer, right? Everybody knows exactly what the right colors are, and then they really don't. I mean, they don't know anything most of the time, I feel. So what do you do whenever that happens? Because I feel like everybody thinks that they have the best style, and then, you know, you go to their house and it looks like they're from the 80s or something.
Or I've seen also where people end up, you're like, wow, you've bought 100 different things in your home and it's all kind of the same shade, and like, oh, you didn't create. So I think, first of all, what's most important is listening, because I think a lot of people just want to be heard. So if you just let them say all the things, or sometimes, you know, if it's like a husband and a wife, for example, this isn't always the case, but this is what I've experienced, where, you know, the wife perhaps spends more time doing the research, or maybe is, you know, because of stereotypes, has a better sense. But I always try to, you know, whoever's most vocal, listen to them first, just like let them say it, and then I always ask the other person, well, what do you think, you know? And just because of my experience, you know, especially doing residential design, you have to be a mediator. You have to kind of be a little bit of a therapist and listen, but also have a little bit of perception. It's just asking them questions so that they make sure that they hear one. If there's one that's more vocal and one that's less vocal, make sure the vocal one hears what the other person has to say, because maybe they haven't asked them the questions. They've just, you know.
What about when you get the gay couple coming in? Who wins?
There's always a more vocal one.
Okay,
But by the other one, just because they're not as vocal doesn't mean they don't have opinions. So, but I will say lesbians usually are often equally vocal, or they like, there's just more balance there. Just the female energy, even if they present more masculine, seems to just come across. Like I feel like I'm able to get a lot more information out of them without me even having to ask, which is funny. I also just, I really just try to be approachable and give people, you know, you kind of perceive when you give people their space to kind of look around and look at tags and do that, but knowing when to approach them and, you know, and ask the right questions. I also kind of tend to ask really pretty straightforward questions. So if they're looking at bedding, I'm like, well, when you've bought bedding and then thrown it away, or you've just hated it, like, what did you hate about it? Try to ask questions to like kind of pull out what might really really be what they're struggling with, rather
Yeah.
than just like, I don't want them to come in and just tell me everything's pretty. I want to like really know why they're looking for bedding. Is it because it's uncomfortable? It fell apart in the wash. They felt taken advantage of because the company looked great online, but it showed
Yeah.
up and wasn't, or whatever it is, and kind of get that out of the way so that we can then talk about, well, this is why I brought in this bedding, and this is, why it's great.
And what about people with, I mean, I feel like we have so much crap. It just told you we threw away 8 bags of clothes in that one room.
Yeah.
We need to like a declutter. Do people come in wanting to get help you? Do they want you to help them kind of get organized and declutter at
I,
times too?
I haven't had them ask me that like as a service, but
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to like sell them something they don't need.
Yeah.
But I think tend to oftentimes go to that conversation that we were talking about, where it's like, well, I bought so many of this thing, and none of them were right. And so I try to help them understand that, like, okay, maybe right now you don't need new sheets, but in a year or two, let's build a relationship, and maybe today you end up just buying a little gift for a little party you're going to, or you buy a candle for your mother-in-law. It's like, or it's a smaller purchase. I always try to create that relationship so that when they decide all the chunky sheets they bought just are not going to cut it, or they're eventually going to wear out, that they know that, oh wait, there was that store, Faneuil Hall Marketplace, with that nice guy who, sells something that will last me for a generation.
And it's so important though, especially like whenever you're, if you think about you're giving somebody something for their house, and I feel like spaces have energy in them, like because like you're there and stuff. So I don't know, like what do you kind of think about like a space holding like emotional energy in it, and just kind of having that, I mean, like you want to come home to Zen. Like my bedroom is kind of like my Zen palace or whatever, just where I kind of go in there and I can just, I don't know, I have a great bed and I have what I want on my nightstand, and I don't know, just like it's so important to kind of have that go-to space.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be like considered spiritual or religious or even anything beyond just need quiet. I think, and I would say I hear that a lot from customers, especially when it's a week where the news of whatever's been going on is overwhelming for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
I think people are seeking that more and more. I think that, if I sort of step back and think about it, I think so many things are marketed to us, again, just because some name on HGTV or some celebrity thinks an item is great, and then it's sold to us because they think it's great.
Yeah.
But, and then it's mass produced and isn't really good quality, isn't going to last. So my philosophy is, okay, everything in this store and online has been made by real humans, like that actually care.
Yeah.
And so if you're bringing, and I'm not going to tell you that like their energy is going to transfer, like I don't really know about that. But what I will say is if there's honesty, authenticity, and like intention behind things in general, then that's going to support a more positive, constructive energy for you, because you're like, wow, like there's this great group of women in Lithuania that makes these linen sheets, and like you connect with the people when you know that people care. And I think that's important. I also have, again, from observing customers, especially if people then they're buying gifts and things, I think people want themselves and they want their people to like relax and to have calm and to have a moment. And so a lot of the gifts in particular that I've curated as gift boxes, or for the products I have that I can help people pull things together as a gift, are for that intention, whether it's a quiet bath or, a nice candle and a cup of tea or whatever it is, in order for and you to be able to create that. Even if your home maybe is not your forever home, or it's like you're like living with 5 roommates, you can at least get something, even the smallest thing, to help you create an intentional moment for yourself.
What's the hardest part about owning a business that most people don't think about or talk about?
I would say I'm a designer, so I have the ability to create a beautiful space and to curate a really great product line. That's my talent. It's great. People will compliment that, and I love it. I appreciate that people appreciate it. But I think that if other people either are like, wow, this is so beautiful, or they sort of observe via social media how nice things are, and, that they translate that to like monetary success.
Yeah.
And perhaps don't understand what it's actually like to work by yourself or just a tiny team without the support of a larger company behind you. Like if you're working in a corporate job, like how much effort it takes to actually generate revenue in order to at minimum pay your bills, and at maximum to actually start to feel like you're being successful, where you're creating a business that's going to last. And I try to be vulnerable and sort of share that in conversations with people just when they ask. But, it's also awkward to be like, hi, I didn't sell as much this week, so I can't pay myself. But that's a reality, no matter what you're doing for a small business. So it's just this like roller coaster of, wow, I had a really great sales week, or had a really great interaction with a customer, or found, something great happened.
Yeah.
And then the next day the energy could be totally different. And you have to kind of maintain a balance so you don't go crazy, but also have to be very real and have to make hard decisions sometimes. And it's hard for people, I think, understand that until you've been in that yourself.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, and now back to the show. So I have some rapid fire questions I want to ask you. Just a few.
Cool. Sure.
Minimalist or maximalist?
I would say maximalist. But that can mean different things to different people, because people have different tolerances. So, but get as much stuff as you love and just make it work.
Vintage or modern?
Vintage.
Boston brownstone or Utah mountain cabin?
Can I have one of each, please? I would say that, but because I live here, though, I would aspire to have like a South End brownstone. That would be amazing.
Same.
So much history.
Yes.
But also maybe we marry rich and we get that Utah mountain cabin too.
Yeah, exactly. One design trend that you're over?
I would say mid-century modern, because it's been diluted so much that it's lost all its meaning.
What's one word that describes your design style?
Eclectic.
Oh, I like that. And what one word describes you?
You have to think about yourself. It's harder. I would say warm.
Okay.
I feel warm kind of toward other people, and I feel like people feel that when they're with me. So
okay. I've never done a rapid fire question. You're the first person I've done this with. So I kind of like it. It's last question is what's your type of guy?
I would say I'm really drawn to an individual who is like excited and passionate about what they do.
Okay.
So in Boston, that means like I've ended up going on lots of dates with people who like have a very small niche of what they're into.
Yeah.
Science or whatever else.
Yeah.
A lot. Especially, when you're in college, go out with every MIT nerdy somebody, because I'm really passionate about what I do. So I need them to be excited and passionate, kind of like be able to stand on their own in that. But like, I also really value kindness and like respect, especially like at the dinner table in a restaurant. Like I need them to be warm and kind to the staff and to me, and want to create that environment. So
I love that. My friend's going to be good for you if you like him. So
cool. I love it.
He lived in Boston. He's living in New York, but he's coming to see me in a couple weeks. And I'm trying to get him to move back here because he could if he wanted to. So cool. Maybe you'll be my ticket to.
I'll be the reason.
Yeah, exactly. Be a lesbian couple, move in together. Like when you meet him, like just ask him to move in like right away. That way he's for sure.
I love it. When you're in your 40s, like be bold. Why not?
Yeah, he's in his 40s too. He just had a birthday, and he's been single for over a year now, so he's ready for a relationship. So
Cool.
I'm going to invite you out when he's here and just see how it goes. You never know.
I love it.
Okay, so that was my interview about Flourish and Foundry shop.com. And I'm so glad I got to talk to you. Your website
you
is
too.
amazing. I have
Thank
to
you.
come see your store in person.
Yeah, please do.
I will do that maybe in the next week or so. You've been amazing to talk to. I will
Thank you.
put the website in the description of this video or podcast that you're listening to. So please check it out. And if you're in Boston, go see Marcus in person because he seems like he'd be really fun and a great person to talk to and help you design something. So thanks so much for being on, Marcus.
Of course. Thank you.